I always ask myself two questions whenever I'm asked to speak. Why was I asked? And why did I accept? Those two questions are easy to answer tonight. First of all, why was I asked? I'm free. Also, not only watching budgets, I'm also not very smart. And you can see how any of these young people, with a little bit of help through First Tee, can go do whatever they want to do. Why did I accept? I accepted because you are all from the private sector and the public sector. You're competitive people, or you wouldn't be here tonight. You're taking your time to be able to help some youngster, and I'm going to make the point to you in a few minutes here that there's nothing more important than what you're doing. Helping young people today in this country with the rapid rate of change is absolutely essential for this country to survive. Also, I wanted to just to set the stage on any nice comments of how smart I am or am not. The Los Angeles Times had a headline just after I'd been selected to run the Olympic Games, and they had searched to find where I went to college, and they of course went to UCLA and then USC, and then they went to Harvard and Stanford and all the rest, and it took them about a month to find San State. And on the front page of the paper, you know, saying here's the guy that's going to run the Olympic Games, they put it in my application page for everybody to see. And there was one part on the page that they were, in those days, they couldn't ask you what affiliation or church or anything. They just put in the word church preference, and it was meant to answer that question. And I had written in red brick. I know how to beat the people chasing. Change. Rapid rate of change in the USA and in sports and the world. That's my subject just for tonight. 27 years ago, my wife and I were in Germany, and the head of state of the country of West Germany, or not West Germany, Germany, invited us with about 12 people to dinner. We were kind of the last on the list. We were very proud to go. I didn't ask him any questions. Someone else asked him a question: when will this Berlin Wall come down? Well, here was the head of state, got up, he sighed, deep breath. He said, someday that Berlin Wall will come down, but not in my lifetime. 2 weeks later, the Berlin Wall came down. If there's change going on, you cannot see it. If you think you can, if you're a professor, if you're any kind of educated person that's read every book, you cannot see change. And that's a little bit what we're all talking about tonight, and you should, hopefully, I can deliver my points home. A year later, we visited another country. And we had been, my wife was the most, and still is, I think, the most traveled European in the country of the Soviet Union. And because we were in the travel business and there were lots of reasons, and anyway, she had that, and we had lots of friends in the Soviet Union. And we were there, meeting with the heads of state, meeting with a lot of important people. And there was a word they kept talking about, perestroika. This was 2 years later. Perestroika, what does that mean? I don't know what it means, don't know what it means today. But what it did mean, their country went away. No fighting. We grew up, people that are my age, and we grew up hiding under our desks because the Soviets were going to bomb us. And we all know all about that. Their country went away. They didn't see it coming. There was no bloodshed. Bing, it's over. But we have a country, and we have to protect it. And so we go to my last point of change, and then tie it into first T. In 1960, Ginny and I were married in the 50s, but I keep track of things uselessly, but always want to have information so I can make somewhat good decisions. And so I'll give you the stats of people, children in school, high school and college, grammar school, high school, and college in 1960. 73% of those kids, grammar school, high school, or college, went home at night, and they found the following. They had a mother and a father, and the father had a job, and the mother did not. So 3/4 of every single kid who went home at school went to their family. They had a household that their mother was there, and the father was there too, but the father had a job and the mother did not. Now, there's been a change. What's that percentage today? Don't shout out, but think about it. Everybody take a number. 2 hands. Take the thumbs. 8. 8% of the young people in America, all race, religion, creeds, and colors, go home, and they have only 8% have a mother and a father. The father is employed and the mother is not. Now, there's a lot of good to that. It's mostly good, but we have change in this country. We've got to figure out what to do about it, because we're leaving the kids in the wrong places at the wrong times, and that's why you're all here doing it the right way. But if you can just imagine that, think about that. Now, women in the workplace, a big reason for that. How many kids go home today to a marriage at all? That's a big cause to that. But those are the stats, so that's change. So having said that, I'm going to run very quickly and give you about 6 sound bites on fun. But I wanted you to think about change, and we'll end up with change again. But I want to talk about the sports. I want to talk about the major sports, and I'll give you one line quick, but probably nobody on the face of this earth has as much chance to be in sports. You know, to have in the year 2004 through 2009 to run the United States Olympic Committee, to help with the World Cup soccer here in the stadium, to run the Olympic Games, to be Major League Baseball. And I've got really good friendships with all the commissioners, past and present. So I'm going to run through the sports. Hockey. The honest thing to say about hockey is it's a great sport. It's growing. It's failing on TV. Why? Why? You know why? Because you watch hockey. Everybody watches hockey at a certain event called the Olympic Games. It's the first or second highest rated sport in the Olympic Games. But hockey doesn't enjoy the television that the rest of the sports do. Good commissioner. They're doing some wonderful things now. They're trying to make change. Have big outdoor stadiums. Maybe we'll play hockey here. But hockey has got good leadership, but they've got to have enough guts to take away. There's enough new sports that do the fighting. You don't need to do as much, because lots of people are keeping kids away from seeing hockey on TV. If you look at the numbers, baseball, new commissioner, terrific. They're doing, in my view, all the right things. I would say that, obviously. They're speeding up the game, speeding it up fast, and they're doing a lot of things to make that game better. And I think that they have to worry about one thing: price. Baseball games look like America. A lot of the rest of the sports don't. They're only adults. They're very high price, and baseball has to learn to take a look at itself and say we've got to price our product, lower prices. And my term as commissioner, I didn't allow pennies in any increase in prices. Attendance went up, and the teams all made money. So you have more customers, and more customers come to your stadium, more customers watch on television. Baseball should make that move. Basketball. You know, basketball was, in my view, sinking for about 10, 15 years until they really understood that they're an international game. And now, you can think of any basketball game. Think about if you're in business, you have a product, you have a basketball game being played tonight. And you have the LA audience, and maybe you're on national TV, and you're getting all that money. For less than $200, you can take that game and send it to China. And you don't have any more new costs. And do you think there's anybody who wants to advertise to the Chinese people? Well, it's mostly the same people. And so they've been able to take that sport and take it globally. And it's a fast-growing sport globally. And so other than football, soccer, when I say football, that's soccer. It's the second to soccer. It's the fastest growing. Then American football is the sport that dominates us. It's the best financed. It is the most successful economically. They've got to take some new steps, and they have to take some new steps in safety. Full disclosure, I'm on the board and part owner of the largest helmet making company in the world. And it makes 70% of all the football helmets, of all types and qualities. But they've got to work toward not just that, not just helmet. They've got to work toward some changes in the game, make it as thrilling as it is, do all the right things. But football, dominates, but that's the thing that is scary right now. Now I'll come to my last sport and talk about golf. What golf is doing, no other sport is doing. It's going and finding young people and saying, well, let's show you what we're doing. It helps our sport. You may love it one day, but the main thing is we want to have you have a chance to learn, have a chance to look at possibilities. And as you do that, all of you are making a change in the world for the positive side, and we need that. As a final gesture or thought, I wanted to just, first tee values. It's a quiet message. You can have it on a coin. You can have it on your pocket. Should not be for kids. It should be for adults. Should be for everybody. How you drive your car, what you do, how much you drink, everything. The first tee is a good example, and you're making a great change. I want to just tell you about one contact with one coach to close, and how a tiny little contact can make a huge difference in life. So I went to 7 different grammar schools in 6 different states, and I was well cared for, and things were fine. It wasn't we were not wealthy at all, none of that. We had a good, and then wound up going to high school, to 2 high schools in Northern California, and And my second year, well, both years in high school, I lived in an orphanage. It still exists because I got a job. My parents allowed me to have a job. I still had to go to school, but I was in aquatics. You know, I was a water polo player eventually. I wasn't then, but I had Red Cross Life Saving Certificate. So a couple of people helped me get it in one of the high schools. Now I transferred to a new high school, and I'm trying to. This new guy doesn't fit in, and all of a sudden, the head football coach sees I can throw football 50 yards, no water polo team. Anyway, he takes a liking to me, and he gets an idea. Now just think of this one man. His name's Ken Stanger. He gets an idea because he's got to know me. He's helped introduce me to the other kids, and so he says, you play baseball. That's your real sport. So after practice today, you just have practice. I want you to come and meet a man at the pool. The head football coach had to have a second sport the way it ran, and he wasn't even a swimmer himself at all. But anyway, I said, "Sure, coach, I'll show up." And so he gave me a kickboard, and I was a lifeguard in this orphanage, and so I know what to do with a kickboard. I kicked up back and forth, and he said, "Okay, we'll swim a couple laps." And they swam a couple laps, and I said, "Okay, coach, I got to go." He said, "No." And another guy that was sitting next to him stood up. The guy was about 6'6", and he said, "Meet Ed Rudloff." Now, Ed Rudloff is still alive. My football coach went to San Jose State. He had called the water polo coach at San Jose State and said, "There's a kid here that's not going to college. He doesn't take college prep courses. I know he can throw, for heaven's sakes, and he's a lifeguard. Come out and see him." He went to see my parents, convinced them to let me go try it for San Jose State. It's a fall sport, so I only went in for the half a year. But it's not about sports. I would not have walked across that campus 2 years later and met a young woman who's sitting here, who's my wife, if those two guys hadn't got together. God bless you.